What if the world as we know it was invaded by an alien species overnight? Not in the traditional, grandiose sense, but in a subtle, not so obvious sense. In a way that before you know it, the aliens are already living among you, feasting on the flesh of your fellows when you aren't looking, and questioning the meaning of the human experience. Parasyte, The Maxim is a series that explores such an alien invasion. It is excellent in its exposition, and phenomenal in the delivery of the narrative. Definitely one of the most important anime that have come out in the past decade. Although, instead of going with the term alien, we'll be using the word parasite from here on out because that's how the story wanted it to be. It more or less begins with a nerdy-looking high school guy named Shinichi. He wakes up to an unusual voice telling itself that it has failed. But when he looks around in his room, there is nobody there. Guess it was just one of the voices in his head. Shinichi gets up, dresses himself for school, and then heads downstairs to kick off the day with some healthy breakfast. He has some really wholesome parents, but unlike most days when they just talk about silly stuff, today they mention something abnormal that happened last night. Right in the middle of the night, Shinichi woke up and started lashing out about a snake that had apparently absolved itself into his right hand. When they opened the door of his room, he was tying the ear cord around his hand as hard as he could while still somewhat asleep. Though for what it's worth, Shinichi was unable to recall anything. So, once he is done with the breakfast, he gets up and leaves for school. While he is on the way, his potential high school sweetheart, otherwise known as the childhood friend, sneakily tries to land a solid chop on his shoulder, but he surprises both her and himself by catching her hand. By the way, her name is Satomi Murano, and she is indeed a really pleasant girl. And things would have been fine for the rest of the day if Shinichi's right hand didn't just suddenly take the liberty to lay itself on her left eye. Once again, Shinichi was just as surprised as her. It takes him a few seconds to realize where his hand had gone to. He tries to talk his way out of it by desperately explaining how his hand just moved on its own. But he wasn't convincing anybody, so nothing in that moment could have saved him from Satomi's hand that also moved on its own and slapped him. Then when he is in the class, taking a nap, his hand once again moves on its own. This time it starts scrolling through his phone. But why is this happening? What caused his hand to develop a consciousness of its own? In order to understand this, we'll have to go back to the events of last night and see what actually happened. Shinichi was on his bed, sleeping. He still had his earphones on, so I guess he sleeps with music. Okay, so while he is asleep, a parasitic creature shows up in his room and then tries to find a way into his brain. Quite conveniently, the earphones were blocking the way. This causes the parasite to move around and find another way. It tries to enter from the nose, but the funny feeling causes Shinichi to unleash a powerful sneeze. The parasite is blown away. Shinichi is now awake. He notices the parasite, quickly picks up a notebook and braces himself for self-defense. Sadly, a mere notebook wasn't enough to protect him from this parasitic creature. It jumps him and enters his body through his right hand. If Shinichi was still asleep, the parasite would have easily gone all the way to the brain. But he was awake, so he instantly ties his hand with the cable and stops the advance of the parasite. This is the point where his parents showed up in his room to see what was going on. They wonder if their son has been taking some sketchy substance and then go back downstairs. Anyways, this is what happened last night. This is how a parasite became one with Shinichi's right hand. We'll end the flashback here and go back to the present moment. Shinichi is still taking a nap in class while his hand keeps using his phone. The teacher finally notices and confiscates our boy's phone. Moving on, when the class is over and Shinichi is kind of looking outside from the hallway window, Satomi appears and walks away. She still had an unpleasant look on her face because of what happened in the morning. Shinichi tries to stop her and apologize, but she gives him the ignore treatment. Poor Shinichi, today just isn't his day. Another girl named Yuko then enters the chat. She understands what's going on, and also assures Shinichi that she'll apologize to Satomi in his place, which she does. Shinichi knows that he isn't in his element today, so he decides to go home early. But on the way, he witnesses a little girl about to be hit by a car. Suddenly, without even thinking, he acts. Before you know it, his hand has pretty much destroyed the car's bumper, and yes, the girl has been saved. This is where Shinichi becomes aware of the fact that something is wrong with his right hand, especially since he just noticed a literal eye pop out of it. He leaves the little girl and runs. He runs all the way back home and right into this room. Before even taking a moment to catch his breath, he brings out a knife and attempts to stab his hand with it. The parasite shows itself and basically tells him to calm down. Okay, so not only can his right hand move on its own, it can also see and talk. Shinichi hops onto his computer and types, "Talking right hand weird snake." But of course, the internet was hardly any help. Time continues to pass and it's already night time. He tried going to bed but wasn't unable to get any proper sleep. At one point, he wakes up only to find his right hand reading books about fishes. So, he talks to his right hand about its fish obsession. No, not really. It's mostly the Parasyte talking. It explains that none of the biology books had anything on its kind. It also tells Shinichi that there is no need for him to worry because now that he has fully matured in his right hand, it has lost its ability to take over his brain. The conversation reaches a point where the Parasyte asks Shinichi for his cooperation. But before Shinichi could inquire about the context or even reply, the Parasyte falls asleep. Then in the morning, Shinichi not only asks his mom for some bacon and eggs, but he also just casually gets rid of a spider that had appeared on the table. Both of these things weren't normal for him to do. Moving on, Shinichi is once again on his way to school. He starts wondering about what he should do. Should he go to the police? No, not a good idea. He'll end up in a laboratory as a test subject. The next moment, the Parasyte wakes up and tells Shinichi that another one of his kind is nearby. Shinichi ignores it and continues walking forward, but the Parasyte pesters him about it and makes him go take a look. There they witness a dog eating another dog. Looks like the dog's brain has been taken over by another Parasyte. Just like Shinichi's Parasyte could sense it, the dog could sense them as well. It immediately develops some wings and tries to attack them. Though, very easily, his right hand takes out the dog's heart and kills it. It is revealed that the only way to kill an organism that has been taken over by a Parasyte is to completely destroy its heart. Shinichi then washes the blood off his hand at the park and is finally on his way to school. He asks the Parasyte about what he should call him, to which he replies by naming itself as Migi, the Japanese term for the word right. And just like that, Shinichi's life with his right hand as his new best friend begins. The worst is yet to come. If you haven't had the chance to watch this anime, I highly recommend checking it out because this is just one of the cases where you are genuinely missing out. It is an excellent psychological horror and deserves all the praise it gets. As far, what do you think of the plot so far? Be my guest in the comments section down below. As always, feel free to also drop any other anime that you want me to cover. I'll go through your suggestions, and even tag you when I get to the anime you suggested. A sincere like and subscribe can go a long way for your karma. Just saying. Very well then, with that said, I'll see you guys on my next video.